Hello, everybody. I hope you're all having a good evening. Thank you for coming out tonight. I know it's very cold outside, and there's lots of traffic, and everybody's busy. So thank you for coming out. Just to get an idea of what the level of English is here.
Advanced.
Advanced.
Intermediate.
So does everybody understand me? Yes, we're okay? All right, okay. All right, so I'm just going to speak mostly in English. If you have any questions at any time, please raise your hand. Don't be shy, don't be embarrassed. Please raise your hand, it's very, very important. So, my name is Brian. Same as our one gentleman, Brian. And I have been here in Korea doing broadcasting in English and teaching English on broadcasting stations like EBS and Arirang for many years, almost 20 years now. And so I know our Wonjang from working together at EBS and at Arirang as well. And so we work together on the same program, but not at the same time. So we just used to see each other around. And so he called me and he said he's starting a new Hagwon and asked me if I'd be interested in joining. So I thought, well, that's okay. This will be fun. And he said, you can teach whatever you want. I said, okay, this will be good. He said, you know, anything you want. So also he said, well, can you do a tipgan? And at first I thought, I don't really want to. I feel like doing it. And he asked several times, and so I said, okay, maybe I'll do something. I have an idea. And so I came up with doing a tipgan about swearing. Okay, so this is important, and people might think, well, this is strange. Why are you doing a lecture about swearing? This is bad. You're not supposed to do that. That's why we do these things like put symbols instead of the word. But that's why I want to talk a little bit about swearing, first of all. But also because in English and in Korean, swearing is a little bit different. And so I think that when you find with, especially younger people, whether it's in English or in Korea or wherever, the younger the people, the more they swear. And so, for instance, growing up, my parents did not swear in Korean ever, growing up in America. So I didn't know any Korean swear language until I moved to Korea. Literally, I did not know any Korean swear words, because for my parents' generation, it was very bad. It was considered sort of rude and vulgar and whatnot to swear. Whereas I grew up in America swearing a lot, lots and lots. So it's the kind of thing where in fairly formal settings, in business settings, people do swear. And it's an important part of the language, because if you don't understand swearing, then there's a certain percentage of the language that you don't understand. So I'm not saying that after today, go out to a foreigner and say terrible things to that foreigner, because I talked about it today. It's more just so you understand. So if you hear it being used, you can understand what the person is talking about. Now, when we think of swear words, we think of, there's the standard swear words, right? Everyone knows most of them. So when we say swearing, it could be swearing, or sometimes we say cursing, or sometimes we say profanity. Cussing is another word. So there's other words that basically all just mean yoke. So it's all yoke. But so this is my thing. What goes in the space? Anybody? Anybody know the answer?
What the
What the?
F word?
It is the F word. So what the fuck? What the fuck? So I have to warn you, because this is about swearing, I'm going to be swearing a lot tonight. Okay, so what the fuck? And so this is the kind of thing where it's so common that if you see that, you know what word goes there. You know what it means. It's like when you watch movies and someone's smoking a cigarette on TV, on cable, someone's smoking a cigarette and it's pixeled out. But everybody knows it's a cigarette. Little kids, adults, everybody knows it's a cigarette, but it's pixeled out anyway. I don't know why they do that. Okay, so here it is, the swear jar. Does anybody know what a swear jar is? Do you know what a swear jar is? So some houses in America or England, sometimes in an office, even sometimes in a classroom, they have a swear jar. Now, have you ever seen like a tip jar? If you go to Starbucks or you go to stores sometimes, they'll have a little jar at the cash register, and it says tip jar. And it's a glass jar, and you put a tip in. So a swear jar is similar, but what you do is, if you're at home or you're at work and somebody says a bad word, then you have to put in, maybe $1 into the swear jar. So usually they say, okay, this is the swear jar. Anytime somebody says a bad word, you have to put in $1 or 50 cents or whatever it is. And so people are putting money in. And so if I worked in a place that had a swear jar, I would just put in $100 at the beginning of the month and say, okay, I'm ready to go. Got my credit card ready. So there's a swear jar. People do this at home too, because you say, well, you don't want your kids to swear, but they do sometimes. They let it out. If you are familiar with the program on EBS that I do, Power English, my co-host, Kristen, her son is just entering puberty right now. So he has started swearing, apparently. Apparently he started swearing a lot. So she may need to get a tip jar soon. But this is the sort of thing when kids are testing their boundaries, and this is also they're learning, and this again is part of the language. And so they're testing their boundaries with their parents and also testing their boundaries with the language, whether it's English or Korean or whatever the native tongue is. Okay, so let's get it out of the way here. All kinds of swearing. Okay, so as I was getting ready for this lecture, I found this little a rule from the FCC. The FCC is the Federal Communications Commission. I think I have that right, in the United States. So the FCC is like a government organization, and they monitor TV and radio and things like that. So if you do something bad on TV, if you say something you're not supposed to say, then the FCC fines you. So they send you a letter saying, you're being fined $5,000 for saying shit on the radio. You're not supposed to. So it was interesting because I was looking at the FCC rule for what profanity is, what they consider swearing. And so I thought there would be a list of all these words, but it actually said, profanity are any words that describe either basically body parts where things come out of your body, so excrement is, it's coming out of your body. So words that describe the things coming out, or the body parts that they come out of, or things that describe sexual stuff as well. So, and I thought about that and I thought, wow, that's actually true for the most part. Some of it, not so much. But so here we are. All the swear, not all of them, but many of our common swear words. Does anybody have any questions about this? Douchebag. Okay, so actually, I'm glad you asked that. Now, I don't really know how to describe this. So a douche is a hygiene product that women use to clean certain parts of their body, private areas of their body. So it's basically like a fluid that you use to clean things out. Now it's kind of like, we can use the word douche just to mean to clean with fluid. So that's like, for instance, some people, they put water in their nose, they spray, use a pump bottle to put water in their nose and it comes out, and that's called a nasal douche. But the word douche actually, so douchebag is just this product. It's like a plastic bottle of cleaning fluid. It's the word douche, though, when you say douchebag, it just means a person who is a jerk. It's an insult to a person, usually men. The word douche itself, though, has become very, very common lately. And it's the kind of word that used to be, when you used it as an insult, you couldn't say that on TV, but now you can. So this is one of these things that when you're swearing, we think, well, it's swearing, but there are certain words that when, this year it's swearing, it's a bad word, but 5 years later, maybe it's okay, because people used it so much. Like ass. When I was growing up, you could not say ass on TV. You couldn't say douche. You couldn't say piss. And bitch was kind of on the borderline. Now, those words I just mentioned, you can say on TV now. So it's different. It's changed over time. So words like damn used to be a very bad word, but now, not really. Okay, so does anyone else have any questions about any of these words, by the way? We're good. Don't feel shy. Okay, so here, just a little bit about swearing, and this is actually true. Can you read this? Is it too small? Okay, so just a little bit about swearing. This is more kind of like official stuff. The use of obscene or taboo language, or swearing, as it's commonly known, is often seen as a sign that a speaker lacks vocabulary, cannot express themselves in a less offensive way, or even lacks intelligence. Now, this is traditionally what people think, right? You think, oh, well, you swear because you don't have the right words, because you're vulgar and you're uneducated and you don't know a good word to use. So that's why you swear. Now, there have recently been several studies by legitimate, real universities that actually say that not only is that not true, but they actually think the opposite is true. So studies have shown that swearing may actually show that people are more intelligent and use the language more creatively than people who don't swear. They also say that there are other benefits of swearing, which I'll talk about a little bit about more. Swearing, for some people, it's habitual. For some people, it's part of language, and it can vary regionally. It can vary by gender. There's a lot of different sort of cultural nuances that come with swearing. So psychologists also are starting to look at this and study swearing and figure out, what's the difference and how does this affect our language in ways that, that people look at as intelligence or literacy, but actually is not. So there was a study at Marist College, and they found a link between how fluent a person is in the English language and how fluent they are in swearing. So when they say the former, so when they're talking about just in the language in general, what they call verbal fluency is basically, you say, okay, here's the letter A, and they give you 1 minute and say, write down as many words that start with the letter A as you can. The more words you can write down, the more fluent you are. Again, with swearing, so they say, okay, here's 1 minute, write down as many swear words as you can. And so they found that the more swear words that people could write down in 1 minute, they were also the people who had the higher literacy, verbal literacy. So swearing and verbal literacy is connected. So again, here's our little Christian. There's all kinds of great pictures like this on the internet, by the way, if you're curious. So people who swear, they say now, the research is saying that they're more intelligent, they are less stressed, because it is a form of stress relief. You know, when there's stuff that you can't say, especially in front of certain people, in front of your boss, or your teacher, or your wife, or your boyfriend, or whomever, and you finally say it, it's like, it feels good. You know, there's your boss, and you hate them, and the boss leaves, and you're like, asshole. Yes. So, here's another one. In less pain. And you might be looking at this and thinking, in less pain? What does that have to be? What does that have to do? Pain and swearing. They actually did some studies, and they found that people who swore while they're experiencing pain, or painful stimulus, actually had lower levels of pain. So the swearing had a pain relieving effect, essentially. So it's kind of like if you are in pain and you just sit there and you're like, and you just chana, you feel the pain more. But if you yell or you scream or you do something that relieves the stress and also the pain as well, you're going to feel a little bit less of it. They also say that generally people who swear are more honest. And I think that kind of makes sense because you think that, everybody thinks bad things, and they probably think swear words, but it's usually, the people who are honest ones, who are not hiding it, who are not keeping it inside. And the better looking part, it's a lie. It's a lie. I made that up. Probably not. So here we go. Do not use words ending in itch, it, or uck. Like pitch or duck. That's just, it's just kind of a joke. But it's the sort of thing that, a funny thing about swearing, I'm not sure if this is true in Korean or not, in Korea, but it's very true in America. Little kids swearing and old people swearing is kind of funny. I don't know if you've noticed this before. It's not supposed to be funny. You're not supposed to laugh if a little kid says, some terrible word, but it is kind of funny. So I don't know if this is something that is this true in Korea as well? Not really. It must be a cultural difference, but for example, there is a very popular sitcom in America called Modern Family. And there was an episode of Modern Family where there's, in the family, there's this gay couple. And they have a young daughter. And at one point, the daughter starts swearing. And for people who have kids, you know that at some point when they start to grow up, they go through a phase where once they hear this swearing thing, it's like great, it's like a hobby to swear. They love to start swearing. And so they were having a problem because as parents, they were trying to discourage their daughter from swearing. But the one father laughed every time she swore. So, because it was funny to him that this little girl was saying these terrible things. And then if you laugh, then the kid thinks, oh, they like it. It's good, so I'm going to keep doing this. So it's one of those things that becomes this vicious cycle. But it's just so common, these stages that we go through, learning the language and sort of choosing what we can and cannot and what we should and should not say. But this is typical of sort of this prohibition, like earlier when I showed you the symbols that we use, and everyone knows what it means, but for some reason writing those symbols out is better than actually the word, which doesn't really make sense because everyone knows what the word is. So again, I was talking earlier about certain words that used to be considered profane, certain words that you used to not be able to say on TV. Words like ass, crap, damn, bitch, hell, but now you can say these words on TV. And there are also rules like after a certain time at night, you can say more words. So you can say, the words that you can say get worse and worse as the time goes on. But at prime time, the regular time of day, when I was growing up, you couldn't say these words, but now you can. So something I always am talking about to people who are learning the language and people who, especially, are kind of against slang. Because I was an English major in college. And so a lot of people who study languages and study English, they don't like slang, they don't like new words. And I always say, well, that's kind of silly because the English language has always changed. And there are words that you can look up in the dictionary and find words that nobody uses anymore. And there are words that you can look up and not find in the dictionary that everybody uses, that people say all the time. So we have to realize that language is like a living thing that's constantly changing and developing, and swearing is part of that. So now we usually think of swearing as bad. It's a bad word. It's bad stuff. You shouldn't be doing this. You don't want to be sworn at. And we think of it used in these ways. Piece of shit, get fucked. And then the one at the bottom, which I got to talk about a little bit more, but this is used in a very British way. So this word that goes in there, so the word is, hold on, I think I have it. Okay, here we go. So I was talking earlier about regional differences with swear words, and there are differences, in particular British English and American English. So in British English, the word fag is slang for a cigarette. So it's not a bad word at all. Now, in America, it's a pejorative for a gay man. So it's a bad thing that you would call a gay man. So it's an insult to a gay man to call him a fag. But so it's two completely different things. Still in English though. Another one, and this one is, you have to be really careful with this one, okay? So the word is cunt. Now, in British English, people use this as just kind of a general insult. Usually it's said to men, and it's basically just like the kind of saying you're an asshole or you're a jerk or whatever, saying you're a cunt. If you watch, I don't know if any of you watch the drama Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, which is, you know, most of the characters are British and they speak with a British accent. There's the one character who's called the Hound. And the big tall guy, and he has a weird scar on his head. And he says cunt a lot. He's very grumpy, the character. He's always mad, he's always in a bad mood, and he calls people cunts all the time. Now, in US English, cunt might be the worst thing you can say in American English. This is a really bad word, and so you won't hear Americans saying this very often. It's a very, very harsh insult, usually directed at women. Now, what this means is it's slang for a woman's body, private area, okay? But if you call a woman a cunt, it's just like the most terrible thing. It's way, way worse than saying bitch. So we think of bitch as like bad, a bad thing you say to a woman. If you say cunt, it's like you're gonna get slapped. Somebody's gonna hit you. Or it's America, so you might get shot. But so, again, though, you do have to be very careful because to British people, it's not really a big deal. America, it's a very big deal. So I was saying how we usually think of these swear words as all bad stuff. But now it's gotten to the point where, depending on the context, depending on how the word is being used, when it's being used, it might not be a bad thing. So when you say shit happens, people say shit happens a lot. They have these things called bumper stickers on cars. It's just like a sticker, and you put it on your bumper, and it could say something like, you want to say university, or Trump 2015 or whatever, or it could, a lot of them say shit happens. So this shit happens is not necessarily like a really negative thing. It just means basically that unexpected things happen in life, and you just have to deal with it. But this expression, for some reason, became really popular, and these bumper stickers that say shit happens on them were like, in the 70s and 80s in the US, almost every car had a bumper sticker that said shit happens. So you think of the word shit, and usually, okay, shit in a literal sense is, it's feces, it's poop, it's dung. But it gets used in so many different ways in English. So get a cup of shit done. And you might be thinking, what? Get a cup of shit done? What does this mean? Or rather, I'm sorry, a cup of get shit done. So in this case, shit just means stuff. So somebody might say to you, what are you doing? What are you doing today? And you say, I got a lot of shit to do. And people say this a lot. I have a lot of shit to do. So it doesn't mean that you have to go to the bathroom for a really long time. It just means you have lots of things to do. When you say a cup of get shit done, it's just saying that, when you get shit done, it just means you're taking care of business. You're doing what needs to get done. But again, we think of shit as a bad thing, but in this case, it's really kind of used in a neutral way. It's neither bad nor good. A lot of times, this is a new expression, shit just got real. So in certain contexts, maybe, maybe there's two guys are arguing, they're drunk, and they're arguing. And it's okay, and it's kind of playful. Sometimes when friends, they get drunk and they argue, it's okay, they say bad things to each other, it's okay, but then somebody says something that's too much, and then they start fighting. So at the moment that people start fighting, then you could say something like, shit got real. Shit just got real. And here, the shit just means the situation. Again, things. But yeah, it's just one of these expressions that it has become very, very common lately. Shit got real. So it just means like, wow, things got really serious all of a sudden. The situation, changed suddenly. And in some ways, it actually can be a good thing, a positive thing. You're the shit, man. So if somebody says, you're the shit, and you might think, why is he calling me shit? This is terrible. This is a huge insult. But this is good. When we put the on the front, the shit, when you say that something is the shit, it means it's the best. It's like, it's John. So, when you add just the to it, if somebody says, you are shit, that's bad. You don't want that. But if somebody says, you are the shit, and that's like, yeah, I am the shit, yes. Or you could say, oh yeah, did you see that movie? That movie was the shit. Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, really good. That movie was shit. Bad. Okay, so same word, almost different, almost the complete opposite meanings when you have the and not. So, hey man, you're the shit. Yeah, I'm the shit. Yes, you're the shit. Yes. You'll see guys do this. They'll say, you're the shit. No, you're the shit. No, you're the shit. Nah, you're the shit. Here's another one. Badass. You might think bad is bad. Ass is ass. Badass, it's not good. But it is kind of good. So badass, again, is sort of like John. But sometimes it's like in a tough way. So maybe a guy who's really tough is a badass. Or maybe there's like, a woman who, her boyfriend treats her really badly, and so she dumps him, and she meets this new, rich, handsome guy, and so then she's a badass, because her old boyfriend was a loser. So to be a badass, sometimes you say, oh man, he's a badass. You think, well, that's bad, but it's not. It's good. Okay. So here's another one. Bad motherfucker. Now, this could be bad, but more often than not, it's used similar to the shit or a badass. If someone's a bad motherfucker, it's like they're really good or they're really tough. And so in some ways, it's a little bit intimidating. Like you don't want to mess with this person. So you say, he's a bad motherfucker, Or sometimes you just use it as a compliment. Maybe a friend of yours is a singer and they had a concert and it was amazing, and after the show you're like, you are a bad motherfucker. And it just means, wow, you're really cool, you're really great. So, again, it's the kind of thing where we would look at this and think, this is not good. If somebody's calling me a bad motherfucker. And there's a movie called Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino's sort of first movie where he became very famous. And there's a scene in the movie where these two people are robbing a diner. And so they tell everyone, put your wallets in the bag, and and then they're going around and trying to take everyone's money. And Samuel Jackson is one of the actors in the movie. And the guy comes to him and says, what's in your briefcase? I want it. And he said, you can't have it. I would like to give it to you, but you can't have it. And so they have this conversation. And he says, also, I want my wallet back. And the guy said, well, which one is it? And he says, it's the one that says bad motherfucker on it. And so the guy looks in the bag and he finds the wallet that says bad motherfucker on it. So a friend of mine, years ago, I went to see the movie with a friend of mine, and it was hilarious, and I thought the scene was so funny, and so later he gave me a wallet that said bad motherfucker on it. So for years I had a wallet that said bad motherfucker on it, which sometimes was a little bit awkward when I would take it out to pay for something. And I'd be like, oh, my wallet. But again, just another way in which, what we think would be a negative thing is not necessarily so. So again, and the word fuck can be used in so many. I could do a lecture series on just the word fuck. I wish I actually should have thought of this, but there was a drama, American drama series called The Wire. It's about police detectives and criminals and things like that. And there's this one scene in one episode that's about 3 minutes long, and all they say, the only word in the whole scene is fuck. So these two detectives are talking, and they're looking at a crime scene like CSI with like the bullets on the ground, and they're just saying fuck the whole time. It's like, fuck, motherfuck, fuck. And it's just literally the whole scene, 3 minutes, just fuck. But it just, the intonation, the pronunciation, whether you drag it out or say it short or whatever, you can have a conversation, and if you watch it, you understand what they're saying. You know what they mean. And it's really fascinating that you can have a conversation with just the word fuck. It's amazing, really. But so yeah, people a lot of times say this. They say, fuck yeah. Hey man, you want to go out for drinks after work? Fuck yeah. So the fuck just becomes like, and I've known people who say, to me, fuck is just like a comma. Like in their vocabulary, every other word. I don't give a fuck what you say, I'm gonna fucking, fuck. But yeah, so fuck yeah is great. So when somebody says fuck yeah, it's not like, oh my gosh, this thing fuck, this is not good. It's like, yeah. So yeah, I like I said, all of the curse words, all the swear words, all this stuff, usually when you learn a language for the first time, one of the first things you learn is the swear words. And we think of it in a simple way, but if you look into it, it's actually really interesting and fascinating and kind of fun as well. So I don't want to, drag this out too long. But I hope that you all learned something new today. And I hope you all enjoyed the lecture. I apologize for swearing so much. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Any questions?
Any favorite swear words that you use?
Gosh, favorite. Gosh. It depends. It depends on the situation. But shit is definitely a good one. Fuck yeah. I'd say that.
For example, I don't give a shit. They say that all the time.
Yeah, people say that all the time. It's very common in spoken language. I don't give a shit. There, again, that series that I was talking about, The Wire, there's just one character who says shit, but he says it really long. He says shit, and it's like really dragged out. But it's very funny. So it's just these different ways that we can use the same words. They can have, wildly different meanings. But yeah, shit, fuck, those are the two standards, classics, Anybody else have any questions? You look like you have a question.
Any profane word related with ethnic or some African American?
Yeah, so that is, to me, I wouldn't really classify words like that as being profane or swear words. Maybe profane, but I wouldn't refer to words like that being swear words, but more like slurs. So a slur, S-L-U-R, is usually a word that's insulting to a specific group of people, whether it's a race, or gays or a certain religion or something like that, but I wouldn't really call it a swear word. So it probably could fit under the category altogether of being profane, though. But yeah, that's a whole different subject. For instance, like the word nigger is a very, very explosive word in the English language, and that can get you killed, literally get you killed, if you say that to the wrong person in the wrong context. But there's really a lot of debate and talk about the word nigger amongst linguists, in the black community, all over, about, is this good, is it bad, is it okay that, it's okay for black people to say it to each other, but white people can't say it to them, and it's very, very complicated. So that's like a whole different subject. Anyone else?
Different from this topic, but
Yeah.
what was it like to spend some time with Stephen Curry and 무한도전 멤버들 on MBC One?
Well, it was, for programs like that, they have all these famous people on, and they're all busy, and so they are very professional. They get things done very quickly. So there's not a lot of time where you're sitting around chatting and talking. It's like they go in and they film it, and they're done really quickly. So I didn't really get to spend much time with them talking or anything, and especially with Stefan. Stefan had an entourage. He had a whole bunch of people with him, his brother and some friends, and then his managers and other people with him. And so when I got there, I just went in, and my sister and my brother-in-law are friends with Stephen Curry. So I went in and I said, oh, hey, my sister is this person, and I just saw them in Hawaii, and so we just chatted a little bit. But, guys like that, they're so busy, and even if they're like really friendly and super nice, it was at the end of a long trip around Asia, and he left right after the filming. So he had a private jet, so he literally, right after the filming, I went straight to the airport and went home. So he was like exhausted, so I didn't really bother him or anything, he was very friendly, very nice guy. We had fun doing the filming, but I could tell he was tired, so it was fun though. Okay, well, thank you again. I hope you all enjoyed today's lecture, and if you do have any other questions and you're embarrassed, you can ask me later.
When is the class time?
Class time, Tuesday and Thursday, and I guess I should talk about the class a little bit. Yeah, so Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7:30 p.m. I'm going to be doing class 7:30 to 9, Tuesday and Thursday, and it's called Power Talk. We're going to be using the Power English book as our text. So this is basically a book that comes out every month, and it's the basis for our program, Power English. And so we'll be using this book as a text for the class, and it's basically going to be lots of conversation. One of my things that I really stress the importance of when learning English is it needs to be interesting, hopefully it's going to be fun, and you have to make mistakes. So those are three really, really important elements of really any language or learning anything well. But things that, especially I think for Korean people, one of the biggest problems with their English and communicating in English is not that they haven't learned it, because everybody learns it. It's that they're afraid to use it, and they're afraid to make mistakes. So it's in their head. You just have to use it. You just have to go and not worry about making mistakes. Don't worry about the grammar and did I pronounce this right, or just say it, spit it out. And the more you do it, and the more you make mistakes, you learn. You can't learn anything without making mistakes. It's not possible. You have to make mistakes to realize, oh, that was wrong. How do I do it the right way? So, you know, I encourage people always to just try, don't worry about getting things wrong, and try to enjoy it as much as possible, which is why I do stuff like this. You know, people are like, what's a lecture on about swearing? It's just because, to me, I don't like teaching. I think it's boring. So if I don't make it interesting, and it's not interesting for the people learning it, then I don't want to do it. So hopefully people will enjoy my class and they'll want to come to my class, and I will want to be here as well. All right, so Tuesday, Thursday, 7:30. Thank you.